So to our top story then, the developing story this evening that Indonesia's Chief Security Minister Wiranto has been stabbed in the stomach by a man who's believed to be a sympathiser of the Islamic State group. The 72-year-old minister was getting out of a car in Western Java. A man approached him. He was accompanied by a woman, and the man had a sharp object. Southeast Asia correspondent Anne Barker has more from Jakarta.
Well, it's quite amazing because almost instantly videos of this attack appeared online. We saw Wiranto supposedly getting out of his car. He had just given a public lecture at a university in Pandeglang in Western Java. He was going to the helicopter at Menes to fly back to Jakarta when, as you say, two people approached him. It appears the man lunged at him with a sharp object and stabbed him twice, we believe. He apparently has two wounds to his abdomen through the stomach wall. He was immediately taken to a nearby hospital for treatment and then airlifted to an army hospital, Gatot Subroto, in Jakarta. There was also a stabbing of a police officer he was with. He was stabbed in the back. And there was an army officer and an assistant who were also wounded. We don't know a great deal about those injuries. But certainly Wiranto, 72 years old, he is the Chief Security Minister in Indonesia. He is one of the most senior ministers and potentially really one of the most senior people, most powerful people in Indonesia under the President Joko Widodo. Pandeglang, we know, is a hotbed, actually, of Islamic extremism. It's where one of the Bali bombers originally came from, one of the suicide bombers that bombed a hotel in Jakarta about 15 years ago. And Dedi Prasetyo, one of the police spokesmen here in Jakarta, spoke soon after the attack today.
We are still investigating, but from our preliminary investigations, we have found that the suspect is influenced by the radical teachings of ISIS.
Well, as I said, this area of Western Java is known for having several Islamic extremists in the past. Police, of course, have said that at least the man in these two suspects is believed to have been inspired by ISIS. There have been similar attacks in the past against police in Indonesia, many attacks by extremist groups, including those who are affiliated with ISIS. Wiranto is the minister who basically has carriage of police in Indonesia. It's no secret that a lot of these extremists despise him. He is the minister who has sent forces onto the streets in the last year or two to crack down on major protests by Islamist groups, both in 2016 when there were massive protests by Islamists against the governor of Jakarta, and again this year in the lead-up and even after the election in April, which reinstated Joko Widodo. He is the minister who has sent a lot of forces onto the streets to counter those extremists, if you like. And even after the riots in May, the post-election riots, there were claims that some of those behind the riots were indeed Islamists who targeted four key leaders in Indonesia, one of whom was Wiranto. So it's known that they have it in for Wiranto. So in many ways, it's not perhaps surprising that an attack like this has happened. And it's clear now that you would expect security both for ministers like him, but even for the president, will have to be tightened severely in Indonesia.